4 o'clock hour we go. We talk more football coming up in just a bit, but right now we're going fighting. That's right. Valor BK coming back, or coming really to UNF Arena on October 27th, but Ken Shamrock's coming back. He must have enjoyed the conversation the last time so much, and he's back here in the ESPN 690 studios. The legend Ken Shamrock needs no introduction. What's happening? Good to see you.
I appreciate you guys having me back, man. How you guys doing?
Awesome.
Great,
we're fantastic. Last time, I feel like we almost made a movie, a biography about you. It was such a fantastic conversation.
And before we get into it this time, big shout out to whoever's buying your glasses for you, Ken. Ken is rocking some of the more stylish Oakleys I think I've ever seen for some seeing eyeglasses here. I'm very, very jealous of these things.
I figure if I can't see and I've got to wear glasses, let's make sure they're at least some sort of sporting glasses, right?
Yeah, they look good.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Hey, has anybody ever started an interview with nice glasses?
You know what? There's a first for everything. We just had it.
Don't let him fool you. Look at the way this dude is dressed. He's rocking the ice around the neck. He's got the Valor t-shirt going. He's got the hair all styled up. Ken knows fashion now. Come on.
You just
Ken knows
puckering
fashion.
up, man, because you don't know what I've asked him to do later to
keep
you.
talking to me like
my
that, and I'm
goodness.
going to ask Ken to take you outside.
So listen, I guess we're going to just get it started here, huh?
Well, hey, how's this? Last time we had you in, you guys were kicking this thing off. How's it going? You said you've been making your way around the state of Florida trying to find talent, and obviously you already had one big event that was sold out, and now you got this one coming up later in the month.
Yeah, man, it's been awesome. The last, I would say, probably 3 months, we've been going all over Florida, the state of Florida, and going to different gyms, boxing gyms, MMA gyms, and we're trying to find, talent from the Florida area to put on our undercard. And I've been very, very excited on what we've been able to find. We've got some great fights. We've got guys that are from different gyms. A lot of beef with some of them because they're from the same weight class and they say they're the best and the other guy says they're the best. So we're going to put them in the bout circle and we're going to find out.
When you say you're trying to find talent, there's I know I guess not all new. People fight all the time. But for what you're doing, it is relatively new. So how are you identifying talent, especially young talent, where you might not have experience in this?
Well, I think that especially with my eye and being able to look at fighters, I've done it for a long time. In fact, I did my own tryouts when I had Lions Den, so I can actually see talent. So what we do is we put gloves on them and we have them spar for 1 3-minute round. And in that 3-minute round, they have to go by our rule sets. No clinching. Obviously, we have to wear gloves because we don't want them cutting each other before they actually fight. And so you can't go up against the ropes or that's a penalty. So we make them fight that way, which is difficult because they're used to going against the rope and bouncing off them, and you can't clinch. And so having that rule sets in there gives me an idea by watching them when they spar for that 1 3 minute on whether or not they have that skill set to fight in our bout circle. So, and I was very, very, very pleasantly surprised that probably 90% of them, when you explain the rules to them, they performed very well. So we have a lot of young talent that's going to be on the undercard of Valor Bare Knuckle on the 27th. And I'm excited at the UNF because the talent that we have are guys that literally have beefs one another, and they're in the same weight class. They're from the same state, and they're trying to say that they're the best. And the other guy says he's the best. And so we just say, okay, well, let's put you in there and let's find out.
A little emotion behind it.
Oh, for sure. And I'll say one of the more, not depressing, but sad things you'll see, man, is when you got these two fighters and all the hype in front of a fight, and you see them at the weigh-in, and they're jawing at each other, pushing each other, and then, picture gets taken, night before the fight, maybe at some club, and they're shaking hands or talking or something like that. And I get, the beef is the beef, and that's great. But I want to talk for a second about these tryout rules because as a fighter that forced action isn't always what you're going to encounter in the ring, but in these bare knuckle fights, it kind of is the pace of the match.
You got no choice, especially with what the vision that I put together, which with, obviously there's no cages or no ropes. So, you think about not having that. Most people don't understand that when you back up, you got nowhere to stop now. So if a guy's coming after you and you're backing up, your momentum's going to take you out of bounds. You lose a point, you lose a round. There's only 3 rounds. So it's important. So they have to use footwork. There's a lot of speed to that, right? And it engages in fighting because you can't back up. That means you got to go side to side.
And you can't
always
clinch.
A striking distance.
Yeah.
And then adding the no clinch.
Yeah.
It's come on now. Where are you going to rest? So it really forces action, and that's what we're really about, is putting on great fights, Fans want to see fights, and fighters want to fight.
Yeah, they want entertainment. They want highlights, and you're going to get it with this style. ValorBK.com, by the way, for more information. It's October 27th at UNF Arena. Ken Shamrock with us right now on ESPN 690. It's interesting as Aaron's asking you that, and you talk about the bout circle, and that's what Ken's talking about. No ropes, no cage. I mean, it's a circle. It's open. Like there are no hidden sight lines. Like wherever you're sitting, you can see it, which is kind of cool in itself. But from a fighting standpoint, spatial awareness must feel different, right?
It is big, and that's when you see these guys in tryouts and they're trying to figure that out, right? Because it's completely different when you can't clinch. So that's a big thing about spacing, because in most guys, it's called a cheat code. Mike Tyson used to have Mike Tyson all the time, man, whereas the guys figured it out, not letting him counter him. They'd do 1, 2, they get their punches in, and then they'd hug him. So he couldn't counter him, right? And so it just got frustrating, almost to a point where you bet Evander Holyfield's ear. But, hey, we'll look past that. But
it was bad to watch, though. It wasn't fun to watch.
And every match...
It was great to watch.
Well, that part might have been fun to watch.
But what I'm saying, when it comes to the fighting and guys are clinching, that's the worst thing in fighting. It's like, stop,
or
fight.
running, right? Like Mayweather running from end to end just to keep the points in the round.
And
it kind of sucks.
But you can't do that. Like the way Mayweather lays on the ropes and he has the shoulder to block. You can't do that, right? So that's what's really fun about bare knuckle and Valor Bare Knuckle is our rule sets. It really forces guys to have to fight, and really that's what fans come to see, and that's what fighters come to do.
We talk a lot of football here on the show, and when we talk to coaches or players, and it's like, hey, are you good at tackling? And some positions you're like, you have to tackle. There's other positions, are you a willing tackler, right? So you got to want to tackle from maybe the cornerback position or something like that, or special teams. I think about that word willing in your arena right now with Valor BK, because as you're going around and finding talent, it might sound good until you put them in a tryout. And then you've got to be a willing fighter, bare knuckle fighter, right? Different than boxing or other things. Do you find that sometimes where you're like, you get somebody to sign up, be like, yeah, I'm in. And then all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute. I'm not. Or you might get an MMA guy that's like, listen, I like this, but I'm not doing that.
Right. Yeah, we haven't run into that. Where, like I said, it's young, and we don't make them bare knuckle. We put gloves on them. So the only way we're going to know that is when they actually get in to do bare knuckle.
Yeah.
But, in my experience as a fighter and what I've gone through in the years, whether they're MMA or boxing, when you say bare knuckle, they understand what that is. And so anybody is willing to step in and do the tryouts and want to do bare knuckle, 90% of them have already experienced it. And then that other 10% already understands what it is. So I don't foresee anybody actually going in there and going, oh, no, it's like, this is real bare knuckle.
They know what they're signing up for.
I think they really understand what they're getting into.
Has a tryout ever changed someone's approach or style so much that you didn't feel like you got to see who they really were in that sense?
Yeah, what really happens a lot, and I've seen that probably in about 30% of them, is they end up getting gassed within that 3 minutes because they don't have that clinch and they don't have those ropes to kind of recover.
Pacing is all different,
Right, because that pace is very, very fast. And so I've seen a lot of that where they've come back and said, dang, that is really fast.
I feel like when we've talked to you, we're talking with Ken Shamrock here on ESPN 690 when you had it in the last time, but the bare knuckle, the roots of this is just combat sports at its truest form. Why is there such an appetite for that? I get the entertainment value, right? I get, hey, let's go have a great Friday night at UNF Arena, October 27th, and we'll throw a few pops back. We'll watch some fights, great stuff, and it'll be highlight-driven because of the bout circle and the way you set up the rules. But why is there a hardcore appetite for combat at its truest form?
Well, that's a question I think that has to be answered. But for me, I think that, making the changes in whatever event you have as the world changes, and you look on the social media and all the things that are going on there, Instagram, TikTok, everybody wants something within 5 to 10 seconds.
Yeah.
That attention span has been shortened. And so just like with football where they put the rules in so you can't touch the quarterback, you can't touch the receivers, you can't hit them, it makes points. You're scoring points. It makes it more exciting. They change the rules so that the fan base can stay excited in those things. Well, fighting is no different. Fans want to see something fast. So the rules that we've put in, the way we've changed it, it makes fights fast. So we're doing 3 rounds. Most of those fights end in the first round. So we're really paying attention to what fans want and how the world is changing, where they want things to happen now. So the rule sets that we put in there, that I've put in there to make those changes so the fans get what they want. And I truly believe that the fighters is what they want also.
Yeah, that's interesting. To build something around what fans want, but that can also fit for what the fighters want. That second part of that is pretty cool.
We mentioned Tyson. I remember being younger. Anytime Tyson pay-per-view would come on, you buy the pay-per-view, $60. It'd be over in 35 seconds, and you wouldn't even feel ripped off.
But you were entertained.
You saw murder. Yeah.
Are you entertained?
Yes. Now it's those fights that go the 13 rounds, judge's decision. You saw dancing for 8 rounds. It's like, man, what did I spend my money on? Love it. Gotta love it. Yeah. And all sports are doing it. To your point, baseball did it more
Baseball
offense
just
this year.
did it.
NFL's doing it. Everyone's doing it.
Yeah, so that's kind of like the concept of it was we wanted it to be fan-friendly. Like the fans come to watch a fight, we're going to give them a fight. But at the same time, as a fighter and me having that experience in there, making those rule changes, I knew fighters that love to fight would love this because they don't want nobody holding on to them. They don't want something on their hand that's going to make another fighter better. They want pure God-given talent.
Yeah, and they're actually doing something that they would watch probably and be entertained by, you know, at the very root of it. ValorBK.com is the place to go to get more information about Ken and what he's doing, and obviously the big event coming up here in Jacksonville, October 27th. It's on a Friday night at UNF Arena. So I really love the venue. We were talking in the break. The venue's fantastic for this. They've got the new suite over there at UNF Arena. It's an intimate setting, if you will, and it can get loud in there. You got the big video board too. You've been over there to see it. I think this is going to be a fantastic setting for this.
Yeah, it is. It's going to be fun too, and I want to make sure that people understand how they get their tickets too. They can go to valorbk.com and get their tickets when they go on sale, and I believe they're going on sale in the next day or two, I believe. So they're going to sale now. So get your tickets. Get your tickets now, because the last time we did this event, they sold out in an hour. I don't know if it'll be the case here, but if you get your chance, go to valorbk.com and get your tickets now.
What did you learn from the first event that you did? Obviously, it was a sellout, and it was great. I mean, was it like, hey, this is what we're doing again, we're rolling it out, or do you learn a lot of things? Maybe some you can tell us, some you can't.
Yeah, I think that, you know, especially since COVID hit, it really slowed us down. I just couldn't push myself to do events with no crowd. I just didn't understand how that could work. So we kind of pulled back and started working on our business structure. Started getting other people involved. We also worked on our app so that we can stream it live and on our webpage. So we did a lot of stuff like that. But as far as the actual fights itself, is really, to me, I thought if we were going to, like, being here, and I think it's a great fight town, is the reason why we chose here, is I want to try to, instead of what we did where we got fighters from all over the state, we wanted to focus more on local talent, so that we can and find our own stars. Like, we brought in a lot of other stars that were already made through MMA or boxing. And I thought, like, if we're going to start really taking Valor Bare Knuckle seriously, we want to build our own champions, want to build our own stars. So we started looking at the gyms and started finding some of the local talent to try to find out if there's any of those nuggets around here that we can start promoting and we can start building as our own stars.
Do you have an end game in mind? A lot of people, when they start a new business or a new journey, they don't necessarily think about where the finish line might be. But in something like this, often when you're starting up a new league or a new sport, it ends up getting eaten up by the bigger guys. And I don't know if that's the goal for you. Are you looking to take this all on your own? Like, what's the end game for you?
No, I look at this thing as it's going to be a slow build, but I think we're going to be forced to build fast just because of the nature of how people are eating this stuff up. But my vision has always been to be number one, the number one fight promotion in the world. So I didn't get into this to be second best, never got into anything to be second best. So I'm really pushing this thing and going to stick with it until we get to that point. The reason why I believe in this is because of the nature of the fight. It's fast, it's quick, it's exciting, and every time I see a combat thing, I put it up next to the UFC, because that's the fastest one I've seen up to this date. I put boxing by that. It's UFC just crushes it. When I put Valor Bare Knuckle and the show up next to the UFC, it is so much faster and the fights are so much more exciting that with what I see this thing growing very quickly.
Well, it looks like it is. ValorBK.com. Check out the website, too, because if you're not completely familiar with it, all you have to do is watch the Valor BK1 replay right there. It takes you right to it so you can see some of the action, and it's going to be an entertaining night. There's no doubt about it. Tickets on sale right now for UNF Arena on October 27th. Again, I think the setting is fantastic. And also part of this, and which is cool, is that you'll be given back to FOP, Fraternal Order of Police. Take us a little bit behind the scenes. We shared a lot of your story the last time you were on a few months back on ESPN 690, but you have an incredible story, an incredible background, and there's obviously a tie here of why that's a special place in your heart to give back to here in Jacksonville.
Yeah, as a kid, I kind of went through the group home and the systems and all that, and we spoke a little bit earlier about how sports kind of saved my life and gave me an opportunity to vent my frustration into something positive. And, to me, when you look at what's going on in the world, to me, it's a shame that we're not really giving appreciation to the men and women in blue that are out there every single day protecting us. Whether you like that or not, that's the facts. And so it's important for Valor to be something more than just a fight organization. We want to be able to do more than that, be bigger than that, and be able to help out people. And so that's kind of why we aligned ourselves, is we just like what they're doing. They have a thing out there called the PAL program, which is, like I said, something that I went through as a kid. And they're doing the same thing with their PAL program with their kids, is giving kids an opportunity to vent their frustration and their anger into something positive, whether it be baseball or basketball or football or whatever else they got going out there. It's really given them an opportunity to get these kids motivated and going in a different direction and feeling like they're relevant in the world now.
That's a good thing. It's pretty cool stuff. You mentioned a bunch of other sports. I was thinking of this. You talk football a little. You know what's going on in baseball, the pitch clock. How big of a sports fan are you outside of the world that you've lived in, much of the fighting world that you've lived in?
Yeah, I follow sports. I'm always liking to get involved. I always like to see challenges and opportunities for young athletes, especially when you talk about that 1% in the world of guys that get in and play professional sports. So I follow it. I'm a big fan. I'm probably a bigger fan of football because I'm in 3 different leagues. I'm in a redraft league and 2 dynasty leagues. So, yeah, I follow it pretty closely.
I wonder that sometimes. I was telling you before we even started, I love the psychology of sports. I mean, the psychology of fighting totally factors in, I think, in a lot of different ways than maybe a lot of the other sports, but there's got to be some commonalities there too. It's an individual sport, even though you have a team behind you. You're out there by yourself. I mean, you've got 11 guys on offense and defense in football that you have to rely on. They've got to be on the same page. But the psychology of it's got to be similar in terms of the want to, the competitive spirit. Like, I talk about this with the JAX in town. People think, like, if you think you're competitive playing Monopoly or card games or whatever else, and which everybody thinks they're competitive,
right.
And you are to some degree, right?
Or cornhole.
Or anything, right? We love to be competitive. Yeah. But you ain't anything close to those guys right there. There's that 1%, that competitive difference, the drive, the want to. I mean, you see it in the sports world that you've lived, too. It's just different, isn't it?
It really is. And when you talk about that, there's this human factor to it too. It takes just this one thing happens to an individual on a team and it could crush your team. You look at what Buffalo did. They go up there and they play the Jags and, they get crushed. But the week before that, they just destroy another team, and you just think about the Miami. Like, Miami goes in, scores 70 points, goes back, plays Buffalo, everything's good. They get destroyed. Buffalo goes up to England and they play the Jags and, they get beat. So it's just that human element. There's just no way you can tell when somebody's going to put on an elite performance, because when they do, you can't beat them, right? So it really is interesting to watch it play out, because there's no way you can just go, okay, man, these guys are the best, and then another week later you're like, what happened to them?
Yeah, I love what you just said there too. I say it about in the youth sports world, people aren't robots.
Right.
They really aren't. Like, there is that human element to it that you don't know what you're going to get on October 27th at UNF Arena.
Oh, I know what we're going to get, man. I say there's no doubt what's happening there. There are going to be some great fights.
Yeah, there are, but you don't know which guy's going to win and which guy's going to bring his A game. Which guy's going to have it that night, right? Yeah. And that's what, I guess that's why we love sports.
We're talking about all these other sports. One thing that has really supercharged fan engagement in all the sports right now is how gambling is being legalized all across the country. And while we're still waiting here in Florida for a local solution, I got to imagine once that all gets settled, Valor BK may want to get their hands on some kind of infrastructure there for some localized betting happening.
Of course. I mean, Mike, anything that's going to generate revenue, I mean, that's what businesses need to do, right? They all think about the revenue because, one, you got to pay the fighters, and that's one thing that we really want to make sure as we grow as a business to make sure that the fighters feel like they're a part of us.
Well, I know you're a businessman now with cool glasses. Once the world's most dangerous man, Ken Shamrock.
At once? What, you hear him doubting you now, Ken?
Yeah, it's like, I got to agree with him, man. I don't want that tag.
He doesn't want that anymore.
No. World's dangerous promoter.
Hey, there we go. I like it. I like it. We love having you in. Have a heck of an event. ValorBK.com. Again, tickets are on sale. UNF Arena, October 27th. It's just fun to watch this thing grow and kind of learn from it. And this grassroots effort almost, it's going to explode. It's going to continue to explode. And the man behind it is Ken Shamrock. Good luck with it.
Hey, I appreciate you guys having me on. Thank you.
All right, we're back at it. Brent and Friends on ESPN 690.